Okay, welcome back to the channel. This is BTE TV, and I am Tony Jackson. And once again, I am joined with Adam, and we are going to be discussing more fantastic hagiography documents and related subject matter. Adam, thank you again for being here.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, Adam, I'm going to give the floor over to you.
All right, so like I said last time, we're going to I broke down these into smaller categories, but this is the miracles after death category that I have on my spreadsheet. Again, if people don't know already, if you go to my X account, which is at BEULERDAM, Bueller Dam. And the first pin post in the comments, it'll say like Little Season Research, or if you're interested in timelines or something, click on that post, and the Saint spreadsheet is right there in the comments. Should be the first comment. And I'm constantly updating it and adding more information as I go through, because I haven't gone through. There's thousands of accounts on here, and inscriptions and medallions, mosaics. I mean, it's all types of evidence. It's not just writings. And I haven't been through all of them to break down all the additional information, because I've been trying to I don't know if you can see this. Is that too small? Probably. Zoom in a little bit. Is that probably better? Oh, I guess we got to want me to transition over to the screen sharing. Probably. I can hit the transition. I got it set up. If you're ready. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
My damn cat again scratching the window.
Mine are passed out somewhere. I think one of them's actually behind me there.
Oh, he was passed out right until I got on this, and now he wants to play.
So on the spreadsheet, just for navigational purposes, for anybody that wants to go to it, down here at the bottom, you'll have all the tabs. So I got an intro at the beginning here, just kind of defining hagiography, my personal statement about which mimics a lot of the church fathers and stuff when they were talking about the importance of telling these stories, as not to worship the saints or idolize the saints, but as an example of, you know, Christ is the perfect example, but we're not going to be perfect, right? So these are, probably the best case scenario for showing faith in the face of, persecutions that are very rarely faced or experienced today by Christians. And then I have it, like books on hagiography, the Dumbarton Oaks one that I added a while back there. That was like over 300 accounts from one museum. And then there's all kinds of tabs down there. Stuff with angels, animals, plants, demons, after death, invisibility, bilocation, assumption, or otherworldly journeys, interventions in war, power over life and death, which is kind of mostly referring to resurrection stuff, because there's saints that resurrected dozens of people. Miraculous protection. And then I have at the end additional fantastical type accounts like the Voyage of St. Brendan. And then I have links to free English copies of pretty much all of those. If it's not English, it's a modern version of French or something that you can easily translate from or to English. All right. Any questions? And I'll let you kind of go through here, because like I said, and then on the left here, you're going to have a number. So as we're going through these accounts, if you want to go and find the one that we were looking at, you're just going to look for this E number, which will bring you to the Oxford University breakdown of that. And within the account itself, you'll have these S numbers, and those are all assigned to various saints apostles, patriarchs, angels. They all have their own S numbers. So if you want to go and find accounts, all the accounts or inscriptions or whatever it may be, all the evidence tied to that specific saint or angel, you just click on their S number and it'll bring you to all of their all the accounts to mention them. But you'll start out like there's an E number and then there's a brief description, right? It says this one says the miracles of Cosmos and Damianos. I don't know how to pronounce these names.
Damianos.
Yeah, you probably got it. Whenever I go to read publicly, I just go full R word.
Oh, I'm guessing. I don't know either.
Recount how Cosmos and Damianos, brothers, physician, martyrs of Syria, in their church in Constantinople, cured Stephanos and sophist by telling him to have his eyes pierced, written in Greek, probably in Constantinople in the mid-6th century, preserved in an Egyptian manuscript of the 11th. And then that'll just give you a basic breakdown of the account. But I mean, that really doesn't do it justice. That's why I've been trying to add various categories here. So this way you can split it up by location. You can do it by year, whenever it was written. You got the author, the works, right? So there's going to be a whole bunch of this Miracles of Cosmos, which is, and then you're going to have all these other different books and the language, the author, and then let's see here. So you get the source, saints, and then as I've gone through the accounts, I've put like miracles or interesting content. And then on the side here, I'm going to add another category with like additional stuff. So it might just say something simple like, relics saved from fire and transferred to the new church. But when you open up that count, it may be, 100 extra miracles, because this is just specifically for the after death ones. But when you go to the account on the Oxford website, it'll have, it might have 10 other different types of miracles or, different types of accounts or whatever it may be. So kind of see what we got for options here.
What is the word when you say translated? What does translated mean? Like it says, if you scroll up a little bit, it says like body was translated from
like moved from one location to the other.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of accounts that are tied to their relics, and that miracles follow the relics. This is written about by many of the Augustine or Augustini. I can't even say his name. I can't talk, but you know who I'm talking about. But anyways, so when they move these relics, there's quite frequently miracles along the way. So either something attached to the saint, something, some artifact or relic that's attached to the saint, sometimes will be miraculously found, which from my perspective, from what I understand, after the Revelation events, like I said, after that worst year in history is when you start getting a lot of these accounts, right? It seems like everything starts to settle down. You start getting a little bit of the infighting on like church doctrines and stuff like that. But that's when like people start going around through the rubble and they're finding these relics or they're finding this or that. And then there's miracles that are directly attached to these relics and transferring the relics from one location to another. And they'll put them in these really amazing, crazy, they call it a reliquary, but some of them, they're just insane looking.
Now, Adam, I want to ask you a question. The incorruptible bodies, there are documented accounts of saints' bodies that do not decompose. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of those actually.
So for all the people, for all the people that said those are wax mannequins, they're wax dolls, whatever, those are the actual bodies of the saints that remained fully intact decades, if not
centuries later,
hundreds of years after their death, right?
Yeah,
And that was,
and they dig them up sometimes. Like there's many accounts where they'll dig up a body to move it to some other location or whatever, and there's no decay, nothing on the body at all.
and so I saw this on the History Channel, believe it or not. William Shatner did a show on it. I think it was the episode about mummies, but he included a whole section on the saints. And I was blown away by seeing this. And I'm like, how is nobody talking about this? Now, Adam, I want to ask you, what is that what is the significance of the incorruptible body? Is that because they're going to rise again someday?
So here's the main issue we have with our interpretation of the Golden Age is most of that has been created in the last few centuries. So the idea that most people get for the 1,000-year reign most of that has been created in the last few centuries. You know, the whole, like the perfect utopia where there's nothing, you know, no wrong happening or whatever, but that's not what scripture says. He's going to rule with an iron rod. You know, there's going to be people that do not bend the knee. And from the appearance of it, like what I think I said it another time where when the enemy was released, like the history we're told for the last 500 years, the Reformation, we civilized the world, right? That's what we're told. You know, people that are still under the deception, that are unaware of, you know, the evil people that are in charge and what they're doing in the shadows. They believe that. They believe that, you know, Christianity has civilized the world and, you know, struck out the heathens or whatever. But I think that is like an inverted or like the enemy's copy version of when it actually happened. Because it seems like it wasn't like it wasn't an immediate thing. Like the whole earth wasn't bending the knee instantaneously. It was like waves, you know what I mean? But it spread out fairly quickly. I don't know if I kind of went off on, what was your question again, specifically?
No, why would God preserve the bodies of the saints?
So that's what I was trying to get to. So the glorified saints, right? They show up like Christ showed up, where they can interact with physical material, but they can also like walk through it, right? Or they can float or fly, or, you know, just show up on a ship that's out to sea, or, you know, something like that. So I don't know if that physical body will actually rise again, because from the accounts themselves, they appear in a glorified state like Christ. Christ shows up in many of these accounts too, and he's in that same state, right, where he shows up in that half supernatural realm, half in the physical realm. And that's what it seems like the saints, the glorified saints, show up as. One of the ones I was going to read before, I mean, I read one of them, but I do have a section here on the nature of the miracles. So all these accounts are letters written, books written. John Chrysostom, which is a pretty famous church father, Paulinus of Nola, let's see here, Augustine. That's one of the, he's one of the most famous church fathers there is, and he's well revered in the mainstream church and stuff. But they've all written letters. Some of them they're written to pagans, because the main people that were arguing against saints and intercession of the saints were pagans and the flying squirrels. Those were the two groups of people that were talking negatively the most about anything to do with the saints. So many of these letters are written to them in defense, right? Some of these are just discussions amongst church fathers about the nature of how because they basically say you can't deny the miracles because they've seen them with their own eyes. So they discuss the nature. In many of these accounts, it'll say they had a vision or a dream or, a hallucination. But if you read the account itself, quite frequently, the person telling the account, it sounds like the saint showed up in that glorified state, right? Like a great example is this the guy that was out to sea. Everybody died on the ship except for him, and he was stuck out at sea. And Christ shows up, an angel shows up. I think a saint or Mary or somebody shows up, but a few different glorified people show up, and they sail his boat back to shore for him, wherever he needed to go to port.
Okay.
So the nature of like their bodies, it seems like glorified. It wasn't their physical body that actually raised up. But I think the incorruptible physical body is a manifestation or a representation of their glorified state, right?
Okay.
So they're glorified, and their body is incorruptible in that sense.
Their body is not going to rise out of the grave, is what you're saying.
I don't know that for a fact, but I think it's just more of a glorified body state, because the modern day church, the futurist interpretation, mainly is that you're going to rise right up out of the grave for the 1,000-year reign. That's what they believe. But it seems like the saints were just like Christ with like with their glorified bodies.
So the incorruptible bodies that we can go look at today in various museums are not the bodies that will come back with Christ, or that were here ruling with Christ during the millennial reign. Is that what you're saying? It's like a representation, right? Yeah. It's almost symbolic, just for it's to set them apart, right? Because of their holiness, their gloriness.
Yeah.
It's to set them apart from regular human beings. Because I've got a sister, Wilhelmina Lancaster, buried in 2019. That was only 7 years ago, with no embalming, and her body has still not showed signs of decomposition 9 years later. I'm sorry, 7 years later. So it's still happening with saints.
So y'all remember in when we went over like the different types of accounts of saints. So the two main types of saints are martyr saints, so ones that died during the Revelation events in that time period there.
Mm-hmm.
The official history has it spread out over like 4 centuries, but I'm of the opinion that because that Roman history was stretched out, that's why those accounts are stretched out, because the accounts themselves are dated based on the emperor in the account. So if Roman history was stretched out and all those emperors were actually multiple heads of like the beast or whatever, Babylon at that time, and all of that actually happened in the 1st century, that means all of your martyrdom accounts also happened in the 1st century, because that's how 90% of these things are dated based on who's in them or an event. So if that person or event has been stretched out or misdated, then the martyrdom account also gets misdated.
I see.
So then you have the confessors. So you have the martyrs, those are the ones who are killed for their faith, and then the confessors are the ones who did not die for their faith, because not every Christian died. And many people seem to have became saints like in the earlier years of the Golden Age, but throughout the Golden Age, people were becoming saints through various means. Now, the official like sainthood stuff with the Catholic Church, they've created this whole formula, right, to, canonize someone. So there's like a biblical saint, like from like scripture purposes, someone that was martyred for the faith or lived during that time or shortly thereafter, right? So those are the biblical saints. But then you have this Catholic representation or like official thing for saints, where they decide who's gets canonized. They look at their miracles and stuff like that. They look at the documents. Some of that, can be legit. Some of it, after the enemy is released, could be used by like the Jesuits or the Catholic Church to, that's when they tie in the clout chasing, right? When they're trying to get indulgences or, clout for their church or their city or their town. You're going to see a lot of that like post 1500. But it does appear that even right around the time that the enemy was released, that there were saints doing miracles. But due to the Protestant, I call it the Reformation, during that Reformation there, and the split with the Catholic Church, and they erased the memory of the saints, which, like I was saying before, like we have not because we ask not, we receive not because we believe not. And the Protestant Church erased the memory of these miracles, which erased our belief, right? Plus, they've really erased the supernatural. There's Christians that don't even believe Genesis 6 is supernatural, which is crazy to me, right? They completely erased the supernatural from Scripture because it's not logical. You know, they believe in outer space, but not supernatural, which is funny. But yeah, so if that answers your question in terms of that, but there is confessors, people who did not die for their faith, that lived and were given responsibility during the Golden Age.
Okay.
All right. So I got one here pulled up. I don't know if this is the right one. So, and then when you get to the Oxford website, I've mentioned this before, but just if somebody hasn't seen the other videos, I was saying, like, this one is in the miracles. See, it says miracles after death, but it also is going to be in the, you know, miracles during lifetime, miracle at martyrdom, punishing miracle, miracles causing conversion, power over the elements, fire, earthquakes, flood, or weather. So, like, if you click on this cult activities, it's going to tell you all the different stuff. If it's something that was read during the saints' feast, because that was a lot of these records are transcriptions of what they would read during the feasts, right? When they're honoring the saints and what they did in their sacrifice and their faith, or their example of piety or their virginity, or, you know what I mean? Anything that would encourage other Christians to strive for that level of whatever.
Right.
And then it's relics, and then, you know, it shows your protagonists, you know, demons, animals, crowds, all, like, anybody the saint went up against. And then the middle tab is going to be your discussion bibliography. This is the one that you really have to take with the grain of salt, because this is the modern day translators, the academics that are writing it, right? So they're going to say this one's part of an epic martyrdom, right? Or passions, to be distinguished from earlier, short, and more plausible accounts, right? Because whenever they start, like, talking about crazy miracles, the logical academic is going to be like, oh, this is epic or legendary, or they just were doing greater things like Christ said they would. You know what I mean? Because the book of Acts really is like the first hagiography, if you think about it. And many of the people mentioned in the book of Acts that were directly connected to the apostles and the disciples and Paul and such, miracles, like if they were converted by them directly, you know, that Thecla and Pays we read about last time, where they were bringing food to the prisoners and stuff.
Yeah.
So Thecla allegedly was trained by Paul. And then one of those females that allegedly went up against, like, the lawlessness, or the man of lawlessness, she was the one that was resurrected in the book. Tabitha is her name. She's the one that was resurrected by Peter in the New Testament. I did say Paul, I think, last time, but it's Peter that resurrected her. So many of those accounts are people that got saved in the book of Acts, and it's basically like a continuation of the book of Acts. What they, like, you know, the book of Acts is the disciples, the apostles, and such. And then the hagiographies are the continuation, right? Because the book of Acts never really stopped, right? They just kept going. I'll just give you the basic overview. It says, these texts narrate the martyrdom of the local saints, either to promote a new cult. This is what they call it, the cult of saints. You know, and I've discussed this before. They chose that word for a reason, right? Because it gives it kind of like a negative connotation, like they were worshiping the saints. But we're all fallible, right? And you look in the truther movement, and everybody makes somebody their authority or their hero. Like I always say, please don't make me your hero or your authority or your leader. You know, like, don't, like, if you're blessed by something the Father's blessed me with, I'm grateful for that, but don't like put me on any sort of pedestal or whatever. But we're fallible, right? And that's what we tend to do. And imagine if you had a saint in your region that was stopping storms or bringing rain and healing your family or fixing your marriage or finding your stolen cow or whatever it may be. It's going to be in our nature to want to elevate that person. That's why a lot of these saints would say, don't tell anybody about this until after I'm gone. That way people don't worship me and they focus on Christ, right? Because that's where that's where the power comes from. Even Christ himself said, I have to leave because it's better for you that I leave, because once I go once I'm next to the Father, that's when the true power lies, right? Christ even says that. Once he gets to the Father, then there's going to be, he'll send the helper, and then the saints would have even more power than when he was here. Because that was the big thing with the saints in John. I think it was, don't quote me on it, somewhere in John, maybe 12 or somewhere around there, 13, 14, or 11, 13, 14, somewhere in there. But anyways, they were all sad and depressed because he was going to be leaving, because he keeps saying, I'm leaving. And they're thinking that the miracles are going to stop. And that's when he starts talking about, don't be sad or weary or whatever, because when I'm gone and I go to the Father, then you're going to have the same power, even more. You're going to do greater things than what I did, which is a fairly, profound statement, in my opinion. Let's see here. It says the martyrdom is preserved in a number of related versions, BHL, I won't read the numbers, but which perhaps derive from an original Greek text. We have not compared it with the Greek versions, but see the hypothesis in pre-Coco. Here we have focused only on BHL 8711, published in the Acta Sanctorum. That's one that I've been trying to translate on my own with AI, but just one volume is 1,300 pages. So when they say scripture is inexhaustible, right? You can just keep digging. You'll never hit the bottom. These hagiographies, I've never researched a subject that has this much depth, because the stuff that's in English is very minute compared to there's thousands of these accounts in Latin that have never been translated. There's tons in Old French, Greek, Coptic, Syriac. There's tons of these accounts in all these different languages that, maybe have never been read or never been seen by, more than a handful of people in our modern times. It's preserved in 31 manuscripts according to the database. The earliest is from the 9th century. Bibliothèque, it's from the Vatican library that you're allowed to go to. The alternative version is still unpublished, was also widespread, with more than 50 manuscripts currently preserved. All right. This is the martyrdom of Vitus, Modestus, and Crescentia. Summary. The boy Vitus, who is Christian. I'll just do the highlighting thing. If I forget to do anything, just remind me. Highlight and stuff.
Okay.
Because my brain's doing 100 different things at once here. So, who is a Christian, lives in Sicily during persecutions against Christians at the hands of the governor Valerianus under the emperors Diocletian and Maximian. His pagan father Hylas has him beaten and asks his tutor Modestus to make sure that he changes his mind. But an angel comforts Vitus. Valerianus learns that Vitus is a Christian and asks Hylas to bring Vitus back to reason, but his son cannot be convinced. Vitus performs many healing miracles. Valerianus summons him and attempts to convince him to sacrifice to the gods and abandon Christianity. As he refuses, he is severely beaten. But then his servants lose their arms and Valerianus a hand. The governor accuses Vitus of magic, but Vitus heals his hand. Vitus is dismissed, and his father attempts to seduce him with all sorts of pleasures and luxury, music, dancers, and a preciously decorated room. Vitus prays to God, and his room is filled with light and perfume. There, Hylas sees 7 angels chanting Hagios, 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 and he is blinded. Vitus prays for his father, but Hylas suffers greatly, surrounded by his servants. Valerianus hears about it and brings Hylas to the temple of Jupiter, but he is not healed there. You think that's big enough? I can zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah, that's good right there. Yeah.
Okay. Hylas returns home and implores Vitus to heal him. Vitus asks him to renounce the pagan gods. Vitus prays to God, and Hylas is healed. However, he thanks the pagan gods. An angel appears to Modestus, Vitus's tutor, and asks him to take Vitus, now 7 years old, with him, and this is a 7-year-old, with him and travel by sea to another region. Modestus and Vitus, guided by the angel, travel to a place called Electorius and rest under a tree near the river Siler. Vitus performs miracles and is fed by an eagle. Many are converted and baptized. Vitus gives thanks to God, chanting psalms. Diocletian's son suffers from a demon. The demon calls for Vitus, who is in Lucania, in the Territorium Tanagritanum, near the river Siler. Soldiers bring Vitus and the aged Modestus to Rome. Both are interrogated but refuse to reply. Vitus, on Diocletian's request, chases the demon from his son. Diocletian asks Vitus to sacrifice to the gods and promises wealth and honors, but he refuses. Vitus and Modestus are thrown in jail, bound to a heavy iron weight. A great light shines. Vitus prays to God, and an earthquake follows, with light and perfume filling the jail. Jesus Christ appears to them and comforts them. They are freed from their burden, and angels sing in blessing. Luke 1:68-69. The jail's guardians are frightened and tell Diocletian what happened. Diocletian brings Vitus and Modestus to the amphitheater, which is filled with a great crowd. As Vitus again refuses to offer sacrifices to the gods, he is put in a burning furnace but leaves unharmed thanks to an angel. People are amazed, and Vitus praises the Lord, singing Psalm 16:3. Diocletian sends a lion, but Vitus makes the sign of a cross, and the lion falls at his feet, licking them. Vitus explains to Diocletian that it is not magic, but that Jesus Christ performed these miracles. Diocletian orders Vitus, together with his tutor Modestus and his wet nurse Crescentia, to be tortured. Vitus prays to God, and an earthquake follows. Pagan temples are destroyed, and many people are killed. The emperor flees, and an angel takes Vitus, Modestus, and Crescentia to the river Siler, where they rest under a tree. Vitus prays to God, asking him to protect those who take joy in his martyrdom, and to grant that for 4 days of his feast no fly may appear at the palace of his martyrdom. A voice from heaven tells him that his prayers are answered, and the souls of the saints leave their bodies and go to heaven in the form of white doves. Eagles keep watch over the bodies for 3 days. On the 3rd day, a certain Florentia of noble birth comes near the river Siler and falls into the water. Vitus appears to her and tells her that she will be saved and will bury their bodies. Anything that she asks through their prayers will be granted to her. Florentia is snatched out of the river, collects the bodies of the saints, and buries them with perfume in the same place where they were resting, which is called Marianus. Vitus, together with Modesta and Crescentia, were martyred on the 17th day before the calends of July. It says equals 15 June. But so that's the like I said, when you click on the account, it may have a whole bunch of other stuff. So this is the last paragraph. After they were dead, he appears in his glorified state and performs a miracle and saves that girl's life.
What year was that? Did that take place?
So this is Diocletian. So according to the official narrative, I want to say that's the 300s. A lot of people think that I wanted to mention this too. I don't think I did last time. So a lot of people attribute the Antichrist or Nero as the man, right? As the biblical fulfilling of prophecy. That's historically what the half of the church that's not futurist, the people that weren't for futurist interpretation of eschatology, historically they thought it was Nero. But if you look into Diocletian, right, if we assume that he was actually at the same time as Nero, he has this same story like Trump, where he shows up and organizes the kingdom, gets everything, like, you know what I mean, gets everything in order allegedly for a short period of time, and gets all the systems working and financial and all that, the empire type stuff, right before he makes everybody worship him as a god. He's actually the worst, according to history, that he was the worst martyr, persecutor of Christians. He was worse than Nero, allegedly. So you'll see his name a lot. I just wanted to mention that a lot of people think it was Nero, but I think they were all serving at around the same period of time. Maybe not like the same year, but, you know, definitely not centuries apart. And he was way worse than Nero was.
And what's his name?
Diocletian.
So Diocletian, you think may be the actual Antichrist, or part of the...
Yeah, part of like that Revelation stuff. Because he, according to history, he was worse than Nero. He made everybody worship him as a god. There's accounts and people saying that he was like possessed by some sort of demon, like an actual, like whatever, like a supernatural being.
Yeah, Roman Emperor from 284 until his abdication in 305. Is a kind of a creepy looking guy.
Doesn't he look like? Is that the one? I want to say he looked like Trump a little bit because I saw him on a coin, and he kind of looked like Trump, but the coins are a little bit different than the.
Yeah, he kind of does.
Is it? Am I remembering it correctly? I don't know if you're looking at a coin or a portrait or something, but
well, hold on. How can I get this over there?
Share your screen?
Yeah, can I share the screen? Hold on.
Yeah, if you
you know what? I'll share this screen.
You can do whatever you want on the thing there, and now I got mine set up so I can transition right back whenever you're done.
Oh, okay. Just give me a second. Oh, I do this from the, let's see, share screen. Okay. Oh, window. Okay. Add to scene. All right. And then do you want to transition it?
I'm going to keep mine up here so I can transition right back. So you can, if you got that set up in the editor there with your screen sharing, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and transition to your screen. And then whenever you're done, I'll switch it back. Yeah, he does. That's him?
Yeah, that's Diocletian. Yeah.
It does look like an old, kind of like an old Trump. Back to the Future. You've heard the whole time traveling thing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty compelling, but at the same time, I think a lot of predictions are just them telling us their plan.
But I want to remove this from the scene. But
you want me to switch back, or?
Yeah, switch back. I believe that time travel is just the demons jumping from one body to the next. Like an ancient demon is now in Donald Trump, and that's why he knows so much, because it's not him. First of all, it's a demon who has firsthand knowledge of all these ancient secrets. And like, remember on my Great Wall of China video, what's his name said Donald Trump said, "Oh yeah, the Great Wall of China was built 2,000 years ago, and it's 13,000 miles long." And what's his name said, "Oh, Jesus helped build that wall." And Trump said, "Yeah, that's right." Like, it wasn't a joke. He just said, "Oh yeah, that's right." Yeah, like they were just having a conversation. No one else knew what the heck they were talking about, but these two demonically possessed men. It was like a fact to them, like, "Oh yeah, Jesus helped build that." Almost like me and you would talk about like the weather, like, "Oh yeah, it snowed out today." Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just what I like. As far as like a time travel machine, I know that the Vatican has that they have that. What's it called? A chronograph or something?
Chronovisor. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like
Project Looking Glass.
Yeah, that's to like look into the future. But as far as the time travel, and again, I don't know. My opinion, though, from what I've seen and heard, is that it's just demons jumping into different bodies, and now they have the knowledge that that demonic spirit had.
Yeah, same like with all the Hollywood actors and stuff that have identical twins that lived, 200 years ago, and cloning and I don't know if you've been down the homunculi rabbit trail. That's a crazy one. But homunculi, which is basically Frankenstein, if you look it up, it'll say like a small person or something like that, like a little mini person that they're creating and through what's it called when you mess with like metals and material alchemy.
Oh yeah.
But if you look up the historical record, homunculi show up right around the 1500s, I think, at the same time that all this other, when if that is the time when the enemy got out. I found that very interesting. So, like which is basically the same thing you're saying, where they're transferring their they can transfer consciousness. I mean, they can transfer to a new body, and allegedly, when they do that, the consciousness that's there is gone forever. That's what they claim, if there is a consciousness to begin with, because some of the bodies, I think, are just straight clones. Let's see here.
Homunculus, very small human or humanoid creature. A supposed microscopic but fully formed human being from which a fetus was formerly believed to develop. That is the official definition.
Yeah, so Frankenstein's also considered a homunculi, technically.
Alchemy. Yeah, alchemy during medieval and early modern times. It was thought that the homunculus, an artificial human-like being, could be created through alchemy. The homunculus first appears by name in alchemical writings attributed to Paracelsus and De Natura Rerum. I guess that's a book, outlines his method for creating homunculi. And I won't go into it because it's very disgusting on how they did it.
Yeah. But to me, it sounds just like cloning, pretty much. If they're gonna like the incubator babies, and
so they were doing that. And I've been telling people, when I talk about cloning, they say, "Oh, they can't do that." They've been doing it since the 1400s, maybe, and if we believe the timeline, but at least since the 1400s. According to this is just a regular Wikipedia search. And it says first started happening in 1493.
Yeah, I found the dating. Just anything that's happening around the 1500s, I'm suspicious of, because that's when all of everything started to change.
Yeah,
and I'm fully convinced that. I mean, if they're just now telling us that they can there's like companies that you can, that are advertising you can grow a baby in like a factory now in like a fake womb.
Yeah.
So if they're telling us about that now, they've had that ability for a very long time.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing new under the sun. Most of this stuff is ancient knowledge. And,
right.
Like just real quick, like this creature right here. This isn't, so that, I forget what it was called. manticore or something
Oh
like that.
yeah, manticore. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of creatures like this, and I think it said something like
I want to. I'm
it's
gonna.
something that the Indians create, and it's like some sort of beast or whatever.
I want to share. I want to share my screen real quick.
Go ahead.
And this is something that we touched on last night. Okay. Anyone that's played Dungeons and Dragons knows, because I did when I was very young. I played with my brother and my cousin. And there's a book called The Monster Manual, and it's all mythological creatures. And as you can see, the unicorn, the centaur, the dragon, and there's like I don't know, an owl bear, a troll, and then some other creature. But, my point is that this stuff, some guy didn't just sit down and dream all this stuff up one day, right?
Yeah, I think that like that book that I just showed you, it says these are real creatures. And it also, like, in the descriptions of them, I don't think I've talked to you about this, but I don't know if you've seen like the old medieval paintings with the giant snails, right? And the unicorns and the mermaids and all these other things. Well, there are like alchemy books and all this other stuff. They used to hunt those down. It seems like that started when the enemy got out. They started hunting down all these mythological divine type creatures because they had supernatural abilities. If you ate them or, ground up the snail shell or, ate mermaid flesh, it'll make you it's like a use serum and, get you high or whatever. But like all these creatures and the dragon, right? If you, the dragon's whatever, something from the dragon, a dead dragon, will heal any ailment. That's in many books. So these creatures had some sort of like healing properties, and that book I just showed you actually breaks down. It talks about the creature, where they're located, what they eat, but then it also, if there's divine properties, if like, from harvesting something from that animal, it talks about that too. It's called if anybody's interested, it's called The History of Four-Footed Beasts and Serpents. You can find it in the National Archive for free. You can download the PDF. But it's got like I said, it's got
interesting. And so what was it? The blood from the dragons?
I forget the word that in my book, one of those old books I sold from the 1700s, it was basically not a concordance. Was it a concordance? No. Or dictionary. It's one of the others, like a Bible concordance or a dictionary. And it talks about the dragons, and it said that, I forget the word that they use. So I don't know if it was something like, like beavers, you take that fluid from a beaver to make perfumes and stuff. I don't know if it's something of the flesh, of the blood, but
because I know that they're saying now that and you can stop my screen sharing.
Okay.
The fluid from whales is actually what the elites use to stay young. And I forget what it's called, golden juice or something.
Oh yeah, I've heard them talk about that.
Yeah. I wonder.
I mean, we know what they primarily use to stay young.
Well, right.
That's stuff we're not supposed to talk about.
Right.
From the kids.
But I think they always have a backup plan, right? So when people found out about that, they went for the stuff that's probably more expensive to get because it involves actually catching a whale instead of a young one.
Yeah, so I got two theories on why they wiped out all these creatures. It might be a combination of both. It may be for those supernatural properties or use serum or give you vitality. I know, like, I want to say something connected to those giant snails, like, gave men their vitality, right? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And, but the other thing is they've erased the supernatural, right? They've convinced us that space is real, right? And that dinosaurs are real, but dragons are not real, right? Those are fantasy. So part of this fake narrative, when they started it, you know, they're going to have to take out all these creatures, right? If people find these creatures. Plus, you know, man has that thing where, you know, trophy hunting, right? You feel like it makes you more of a man if you kill this beast or whatever, you know. And it seems like, especially this book, especially it breaks down, there's like multiple pages about just dragons, all the different types, like serpent type dragons, horned dragons, flying dragons, and then all these crazy creatures that some of them are like, you know, half ape, half man, like Bigfoot looking, or whatever. But yeah, if you want, I can jump back in here.
Yeah.
So this one is from Augustine of Hippo, which is, you know, one of the most famous Christian early church fathers or whatever. They say he's the father of amillennialism, which means no literal 1,000-year reign. But you could reinterpret that, right? Because after the Reformation, they basically were convinced that there was no golden age. It was just corrupt and dark, right? All the way back. They said it's the Dark Ages, corrupt, evil Catholic Church for a millennia. But the way that he describes it, it sounds like, you know, they're living in the reign, right? The saints are showing up, angels are showing up, Christ is showing up. Things like, you know, all these supernatural things are happening, and they're conquering, you know, nations that aren't bending the knee. You know, there's a whole section in here about miracles having to do with war. And, you know, they quite frequently don't even have to fight the battle, or, you know, there's a famous one in Russia where Mary shows up. I forget who she shows up with, but she shows up and saves this church. And there's tons of paintings on that one too. All right. So, this is the discussion. Augustine of Hippo was born in 354 in the North African city of Thagaste. And just, everybody thinks of Africa as this non-Christian nation today. But if you look at the history, it's just like Syria. Syria is one of the epicenters, it seems, of either the early church or the golden age. And they've just that's why there's just constantly war there. They're bombing. That's where they're finding all these massive mosaics underneath the ground. They'll bomb an area and it'll open a tunnel or a building that's been buried underneath the ground. And, but Africa was full of Christians, full of Christian centers, Christian structures, Christian everything. And they just erased that all from the history pretty much. Like you look at the Hagia Sophia in Turkey, right? Many of those structures have been converted to Muslim or Islam or whatever.
Right.
And I'm of the mindset, this is just a hypothetical speculation thing, but I'm pretty sure Muhammad and all that stuff may have been tied earlier than they claim. And I think that many things that were given credit to the Muslim faith, I think it was just different colors of Christianity. Like same with the Asian saints, and discovering that the story of Buddha was actually a Christian hagiography. And the only other like religion or whatever that's really included in hagiography is the Buddhist saints, which is really weird. But the same thing happened to them, like I was mentioning in the video we recorded yesterday, where those monasteries, the monks were wiped out and they just rewrote the story. You know what I mean? Over and over again. That's what the enemy's done, is just kept rewriting the story, and then they all agree upon the lie. But all right, I'll keep going. I mean, we don't need to really go into Augustine's backstory because he's fairly famous, but we'll talk. Amongst his many writings, the most informative on the cult of saints are his numerous sermons, The City of God, and the treatise on the care of the dead. That's one of the ones that talks a lot about the nature of the miracles of the saints. And it goes into like details and speculation and different viewpoints. The sermons tell us which saints, primarily African, but with some from abroad, received attention in Hippo, Carthage, and elsewhere, and provide occasional details of miracles and cult practices. The City of God records the distribution and subsequent miracles of the relics of Saint Stephen. After they arrived in Africa from Palestine in around 420, On the Care of the Dead discusses the possible advantages of burial ad sanctos, in other words, close to a saint, and theorizes on the link between the saints who dwell in heaven and their corporeal remains buried in their graves. In these works and others, Augustine reveals his own particular beliefs about the saints, their relics, and their miracles. Augustine wrote Book 22 of the City of God and Hippo, 426, 427, chapters 8, 9, enumerate a number of contemporary miracles, most of which took place in Hippo and other cities of North Africa, either at the relics of Stephen, the first martyr of those of Gervasius and Protasius, martyrs in Milan. So that's the description. All right. Augustine, who quoted a number of contemporary miracles in the preceding paragraphs, claims that there are many more miracles of Stephen, which for the sake of brevity have to be omitted in this book. You'll hear that a lot too when they're writing about the miracles. They have to pick and choose which ones they write down because there's just so many reports and so many miracles that they witness. And then you'll always have the original language and then whatever the translation is. For were I to be silent of all others and to record exclusively the miracles of healing which were wrought in the colony of Kalama and in our city by means of this martyr, I mean the most glorious Stephen, they would fill many volumes. And yet all of these could not be collected, but only those of which written accounts have been given for public recital. For when I saw in our own times frequent signs of the presence of divine powers similar to those which had been given of old, I desired that accounts might be written, judging that the multitude should not remain ignorant of these things. It is not yet 2 years since the memorial shrine was established in Hippo Regius, and though many of the miracles which have been wrought there have not, as I have the most certain means of knowing, been recorded in written accounts, those of which accounts have been given amount to almost 70 at the hour at which I write. But at Kalama, where this memorial shrine has been for a longer time, and where the written accounts are given more often, their number is incomparably higher. We know also numerous and splendid miracles which were wrought at the colony of Uzalis, which is near Utica, by the same martyr. His memorial shrine there was established much earlier than with us by Bishop Evodius, but the custom of giving written accounts does not exist there, or rather it did not, for possibly it may now have begun. For when I was there recently, a woman of senatorial rank, Petronia, had been miraculously cured of a serious illness of long standing, in which all medical appliances had failed. And with the consent of the above-named bishop of the place, I exhorted her to give a written account of it, that it might be read to the people. She most promptly obeyed and inserted her narrative, a circumstance which I cannot omit to mention, though I am compelled to hasten on to the subjects which this work requires me to treat. And this is the written account, I think. This is the author or the academic, whatever, narrator, like the modern day person, I think. There follows the story of Petronia, a noblewoman who traveled from Carthage to Uzalis wearing a talisman ring obtained from a flying squirrel and hung on a hair girdle around her neck. When she reached the river Bagradas, she found the ring lying at her feet, in spite of the fact that the girdle remained unfastened and intact. She recognized the miracle and threw the ring in the river. The healing itself is not described. Augustine emphasizes that the veracity of his account can be checked, for the miracle occurred to a well-known person in a well-known city. This leads the author to the following conclusion. Even now, therefore, many miracles are wrought. the same God who wrought those we read of still performing them, by whom he will and as he will. But they are not as well known, nor are they beaten into memory like gravel by frequent reading, so that they cannot fall out of mind. For even where, as is now done among ourselves, care is taken that the written accounts of those who receive benefit be read publicly. Yet those who are present hear the narrative but once, and many are absent. And so it comes to pass that even those who are present forget in a few days what they heard, and scarcely one of them can be found who will tell what he heard to one who he knows was not present. So it says there. So this is like broken up into a whole bunch of sections. So it says here the following. There follows a long description of a miracle which occurred at Easter. So we'll just click that. So this is the same writing from Augustine or whatever. Having enumerated a number of contemporary miracles, especially in Hippo and other places in North Africa in which relics of Stephen were deposited, Augustine presents in detail a miracle that he qualifies as greater, more evident, and better known than those named above. So this is like a snippet out of a long document. So before this, you can find most of it in these accounts. If you want to like look for on this specific one, after death, you'll see Augustine of Hippo, and it'll show the works. So you're going to look for either this number here, his name, and then it'll show which chapter or which book it's in or which source it comes from, or if it's an inscription or painting or whatever. 10 siblings in Cappadocia are cursed by their mother, and they are seized by shaking of their limbs. They wander through the Roman world, and 2 of them, Paul and Palladia, come to Hippo 2 weeks before Easter. They visit the church every day and pray at the memorial shrine of Stephen. Just before the Mass of Easter, Paul, who holds the railings of the holy place, where the relics are, of Stephen, suddenly falls asleep, and after waking up does not tremble anymore. People in the church shout with joy. Augustine celebrates Mass. Next day, he promises the congregation that on the following day a written account of the miracle will be read in church, and it is read accordingly in the presence of the siblings, when, after the reading, they would draw to the Memoria. Palladia is healed as well. So they're not all fantastical, right? But the common narrative is just there's so many miracles happening during this period of time. And this is one of the most respected, church fathers, right? His writings and trusted in the church, like the mainstream church, just in general. And, there's always a question about who's who, and they invert things. But in terms of the miracles, you cannot deny that the saints were ruling these geographic regions, doing miracles. And it was just, it seems like it's a lot like Scripture would describe, right? And this would have been, it says 426, 427, but he, I believe, is writing during after the persecutions. So this is when they're having this is in the very beginning when they start having feasts and start memorializing all the acts of the saints and such. But like I was saying, so on this document, on the after death tab down here, this category, so you'll see Augustine of Hippo, and then it'll have that 22. So these are all from that same document, right? So when I was reading, it was prior to, there was a listing of miracles or whatever. So this is, and then you'll see it's what it's written in and everything else. So if you want to read that full document, you can easily find it on here. Let's see here.
Do you have a list of all the miracles of that one saint, or how many miracles he performed, or is that something you'd have to?
Stephen has a lot. What I can do is I can do a specific. So this website is one of the best that I've found for searchability purposes. So you can go like most of the links, right, will bring you to this. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, if you go down to the discussion part, the middle tab, and you come down at the bottom, this is like, there's just, like I said, this subject is so that you quite literally could read these accounts and books attached to these accounts and all the documentation for the rest of your life all day long and not hit the bottom of it. So this one only has 3, but some of them have up to like 10 further reading, right? Many of them are not in English, so you'll have to translate them, but you can find, I found a whole bunch of them, and I put them on, there's a link with all these English translations and then websites you can go to find the original hagiographies and the original scripts and stuff. But then it'll show you various books that are connected, like this one's Hagiographies, the history, international, the literature, hagiography. I can't read that, but there, like I said, there are different languages, but even
books.
Yeah,
those are actual books.
Yes. So these are all additional sources connected to whatever, if it's either it's either connected to somebody in the account, or it goes further into the account or the person or the miracles or that location. And like I said, I mean, the fact that like people were just steered away, like that one episode I did with Paul there, that was the only thing ever written on hagiographies. It just blew my mind, because I mean, like I've said a bunch of times, a quick Google search will show you that there are thousands of books written about these accounts, collections of these accounts, and then there's just thousands of other collections where they've only like the Acta Sanctorum. There's, I think, don't quote me on the number, but there's at least a dozen volumes. They've been doing that for every single year, or for like since the 1600s, right? And that like one Acta Sanctorum volume has 1,300 pages, and but they don't ever translate them to English. Many of the modern, the biggest translators that are putting out these volumes, they're only putting it into like modern Latin, which, you know, makes it reminds you of the whole Catholic Church story where they, you know, usurped the languages, changed the languages, and then nobody could read scripture anymore, and they kept it in that one language. They do the same thing with hagiographies. They keep it in this language that's not as easily accessible to everybody. And some of those hagiography volumes are hundreds, thousands of dollars they charge you for the newly translated ones, the ones that they're recently doing.
And all you tried to do was get AI to compile like everything.
So yeah, so what I was
instead of having to buy like 5,000 different books, you just like try to do it through AI and say, send me everything you have on this, right? Is that?
Yeah. So because I'm in the archives all the time, I was going through and I was finding, like I said, they're digitizing thousands of these documents, everything from maps and books of star forts and, you know, like books of strange beasts, just all kinds of books. Many of those books are either a whole book or a volume of accounts attached to one saint, or a collection of a whole bunch of saints. Many of them have not been translated to a modern English because they've just only recently been digitized. Initially, what the AI was supposed to do, like before I went public on X, because I went public on X with my methods before I went on Paul's show, like maybe days or like within that week or whatever. And I had never had an issue. I had an issue with it telling me the official narrative and cog dis, and I had techniques, right? I could quite literally rebuke it and it would give me the correct answer. And but I was specifically telling it to pull from documents that I told it to, like a collection of these documents, right? Either you can download the PDF or you can send it the text file because they'll have like a text file with the digitized manuscript or whatever. And that's when it started lying and mixing in truth and like switching stuff up. But I also had a whole folder full of bookmarks, and like 50% of those bookmarks for newly digitized documents went dead. And it said removed by the uploader or something like that. It's not the first time, like I said in the first video. There's plenty of times where I've done research, I've found something, and I've learned now, always screenshot it, screen record, make a copy, put it on an external drive. Because I don't know how many times I've found stuff, whether it's on satellite maps or in the archives, and then I'll go back and it's not there. And after I had gone public there, I mean, my links just started all dying in my, because, you save your bookmarks or whatever. But I was specifically giving it a task. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that was not hallucination. That was like intentional sabotage, right? Because it wasn't just a random hallucination. It took real information. It took real names. It took stuff, and then it mixed it together. It gave you real links. And and then my documents were getting corrupted remotely. And,
in real time, right?
Yeah,
in real time.
And I had I didn't even have that on. I didn't have like where you like, there was no editing or nobody could edit it. It was like locked or whatever. But yeah. So it was definitely intentional sabotage. But I mean, the thing is, I've gone through enough accounts now where, AI is not really creating anything. It's pulling from somewhere. But I think it was really just to muddy the waters. And, I've repented. I admitted my fault before anybody made any accusations. I corrected the documents, and I've tried to rectify it the best I could, and because I felt responsible, right? And I felt like I was doing Christ and these saints and their story, doing them dirty. So that's why I put in all the work to, plus for me, I don't know about other people, but these accounts, like, they give me, like, I've always been fascinated with the accounts, like Fox's Book of Martyrs. That's a great starting point for anybody that's getting into learning about the martyrs, right? That's one of, I forget who wrote it, but anyways, it's like all the early martyrs, like all the official ones, the most like credible ones. It tells their story, how they were singing hymns and loving their enemies and all that stuff. And I find a lot of inspiration reading these accounts, I mean, aside from the fact that it helps me trust scripture, that, things happen the way they said they would happen, right? Even if some of these are exaggerated, even if some of them are, made up or mistranslated or whatever, there's just too many. And the overarching theme, right, where you got all these martyrdom accounts, and then they just stop pretty much overnight. And then you have saints ruling over regions, performing every single role, whether it's marriage counselor to detective to doctor to, what I mean? They're just quite literally every single role that our satanic systems fill today, the saints were filling. And then you have the fact that there's 1,000-year golden age of hagiography. And then that ends right around 1500, which is when all the satanic stuff and all the evil stuff kicks off and all these other connections about destroying the church and the wars. And, for me, it just filled in a very large piece of the puzzle. Because one of the questions I always get asked is, if the golden age happened, where's the evidence? I mean, the easiest thing is to just tell them to drive to any town in any city, in any country, and just look around, right? And you'll see the evidence of it, because pretty much every single city and town has evidence of the old world in it. Just look at pick whatever the oldest looking building is. You can usually distinguish the ones, right? They stick out, and just pick it, go to Wikipedia and read the backstory, right?
Yeah.
And then the next time you go to another town, or just pick whatever the top 5 buildings are, and then keep reading those stories, and you'll notice they're all the same. John went to John's house, and he hired John's carpentry, and then, he won an architect contest, right? And then he died shortly before it was completed, and so from John's excavation took over, right? Where they repeat the names, and
Can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. This is just a simple AI search. And I typed in, can you send me a list of all the digitized books on hagiography? And here's what it said. There isn't one universal catalog, but several major digital collections together cover thousands of texts. The good news is that many of these are fully online and free to access. And then it goes on to tell me hagiography access, saints' lives, martyrdom accounts, miracle collections, relic. Look at miracle collections, right? Dumbarton Oaks.
Yeah, that's Dumbarton Oaks. That's that tab. I just did all of theirs.
Yeah, there it is right there. This is static.wikitide. This is, static.wikitide. Biblioteca Latina. Many in full image form, medieval. And I mean, we could go through this all night, right?
That's what I'm trying to tell people, is that, like, anybody who tells me they've, like, you know, I've looked into hagiographies and I didn't even know.
4,700 secondary and primary works.
And mind you, 80% have officially been destroyed, burned, or the library. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what's left. And that's what's actually been allowed to. So imagine what's still in the tunnels. Because the Vatican alone.
Look at all these books.
Yeah. That's what I like. That's why I do not understand how people were, like, somehow convinced that I was the only person who ever said anything about hagiography. Because a quick Google search, like, will show you there are enough. Like I said,
look at all these books, man. This is just one tab from a tab from a tab. Like,
they go on forever. Like I said, I'm
so confused. Why I don't understand. You don't even have to really. You could just do what I did.
Yeah.
You don't have to trick AI into doing anything, really, right?
No, like I said, it was intentional sabotage in the infiltrators. Like I said, I always thank the infiltrators because they tell me exactly where to look, right? By how hard they go to try to prevent me from actually researching on the internet, like whether it's my connection or removing links on whatever subject, or publicly shaming people that look into it, right? Because that's what the controllers do. Oh, you're looking into flat earth, you idiot, right? You know, like, that's stupid. Like, you're falling for a psyop, right? And they publicly shame people. And that's the sad part about our brainwashing in this world, in our lives. We leave one authority, but we have been programmed to submit to an authority. And sadly, many people in this community have chosen the wrong individuals for their authority. And those people are, right, pointing them in every direction and saying, this person's this person's that. And I've seen that they don't even remember me, right? Because I was a nobody, but I was in X spaces with these infiltrators, the ones that went the hardest, right? There's a group of them, the team that went so hard against me and still is to this day, which is hilarious. And again, I'll remind them of that gift that I'm giving them, because if you're going to bring false accusations, I would challenge you to do a FOIA request to pull my DEA records from 2003 to 2005 or 6. 6 if you want to hear the juicy health details, you know, about me exaggerating my health. 2005 if you just want the DEA stuff. But you'll have all my dirty, dark skeletons in my closet, my most dark, debaucherous, like, dark part of my life, right? You get to expose it. But if you're going to make false accusations against me and my life and my, like, what I claim about where I've been, my relationship with the government, pull my DEA records, FOIA them from the 2003 to 2005, both my employment and my criminal surveillance charges and everything else. And you'll get everything you need. But if you're like, I don't think you have any ground to make any false accusations about any of that stuff unless you publicly make a video series about my FOIA DAA records. I will give you a hint because I love you and I forgive you, but those cases are sealed because allegedly my clientele were all federal employees of various sorts, from judges to lawyers to all those different people, and they really do not want people to find out.
You can switch back. You probably shouldn't go into that stuff, right?
Yeah, I won't go too deep into it, but if you're going to make false accusations, FOIA my DEA records and then publicly expose them. Otherwise, you really don't have any ground. And for those of you that are deceived by these people, like, I would challenge you to just pray for discernment. Are they displaying the fruits of the Spirit, humility, love, compassion, long-suffering, or are they displaying the same fruits that the controllers who had you deceived your entire lives display, where they publicly shame people, they treat nobody with love, and all they do is just cause confusion, division, and everything else, right? So, yeah, that's the last I'll say on that.
All right, but the point that we're making is that this is very easily accessible. This information is very easy to find, whether you want it digital or you want an actual book to read. Correct?
Yeah. And so
I don't know. I'm still so confused, and it makes me mad that so many people are saying this is misinformation. There's more information on these saints than there is about some like mainstream subjects.
Yeah, it's like, one of the best arguments for Christianity, or when people are like, well, Christ never existed, he's made up, right? Then you show them the documents, right? You show them that he's the most written about, if he's not real, then our entire reality is fake. And then you fall into the rabbit hole of like, we just live in a simulation, we're an alien meat farm or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's too many documents from too many sources, and like not just documents, but pieces like inscriptions, paintings, everything.
Yeah.
And the hagiographies is like what people don't realize. Much of the corroborating evidence that Christianity uses, like Augustine of Hippo, right? He's one of the foundational church fathers, his writings, right? And Eusebius and these guys that lived during that time. And these guys wrote about the saints all the time and argued like like I said, the Protestant Reformation erased the memory of the saints because the Catholic Church, right, when the enemy got out, he took the stories of the saints and he started to use them for nefarious purposes, right? There were saints still doing miracles, I think, during that time. And there's still people doing miracles today, but it's been erased out of our consciousness, so we don't believe it's possible. We may claim we believe it's possible, but deep down inside, it's not possible, right? Because we don't like, oh, that's like the supernatural. Like, even if we claim to believe it or we claim to believe scripture, like in our hearts, we've been trained our entire lives that it's not scientifically possible, right? It's not, it goes against logic and science and whatever else. But the Reformation erased the memory of these saints. And, yeah. And I mean, and the thing is, the Father this is what I always tell people about, like, the deceptions. This was the Father's plan. As much as it may stink to be in it and be deceived our whole lives and not know what's truth and not know what's real, the Father allowed him to come out, right? The Father allowed him to deceive the nations, not some nations. Doesn't say anything about excluding the church or the elect. And the fact that 90% of the church believes in outer space proves emphatically that the church and the elect are able to be deceived during this time. I believe personally, this is my opinion, that this period of time is either for giving people a second chance, maybe the rest of the dead theories, right, where we may have lived a past life, but it's the ultimate test of humility, because everybody is so deceived that nobody has any ground to have pride to die on any hill. Yet we do. But the other thing is, he wishes that none should perish, right? And I believe this is just a final test of that time, right, where The enemy's going to do everything he can to prevent people getting saved. And look at how much deception we've been under for centuries, and people are still finding faith, right? People are still, bound or humbling themselves before their creator. And, as much as it may stink to be during this time, right? And I'm actually starting to have a better mindset on that, that it's actually a blessing to be during this time. I mean, just even if there's only a 1% chance that some of us lived before and either lived against the Father or denied Christ or whatever it may be, right? We lived a heathen, pagan, evil life. Even if there's a 1% chance of that, that should humble us, right? Because a lot of us have pride in our faith, but our faith, right, is a gift too, lest we should boast. So even our faith that gives us all the other fruits and everything else is a gift. So we can't even boast in that. The only thing we should boast in is our weaknesses, our sickness, our infallibility, and yeah. But there's so much here. Anybody who tells me that they've covered hagiographies, I don't think has really looked into the subject all that much, because, like I said, even with me, with as much time that I have, even if I was going to live a full life, let's say I was going to live to like 80 years old, if I spent every single day only researching these accounts, because it's not just the accounts. You were pulling up accounts and volumes of accounts. There's also thousands, if not tens of thousands, of additional sources written about the books, right? Where they connect dots, or they, whatever it may be. And it's just as inexhaustible as Scripture. In the fact that we've connected so many dots, like the 1,000-year golden age, the fact that all these hagiographies were martyrdom accounts right around the worst year in history. And then, because I had that theory about the stretched out Roman history, and the infiltrators attacked that so hard, and they didn't even understand what I was saying. And I was like, okay, there has to be more to this. But it just connects so many dots that, and like I said, it's just one piece of the puzzle. So many other people that have researched have brought pieces of the puzzle where I'm like, oh, that's what connects that. Okay, now that's what makes sense. And, like I've said a bunch of times, I'd prefer to be under my rock, but the Father has made it clear I don't get to bury my talents. And I do. The handful of you out there that have been blessed by what the Father's blessed me with, because I know what it's like to be traumatized when you wake up. I know what it's like to have because in the truther community, especially like in X spaces, Christians get attacked. We're idiots, right? Because we're like, oh, they're awake too, and the Christians are awake, but they'll attack us as Christians because they think we're not awake because we still have faith. But they don't understand that faith is not an intellectual, logic-based thing, right? It's a supernatural gift. I shouldn't have faith. Knowing everything I know about all the deceptions and the confusions, because I'm the first one to point out all the contradictions, like with Scripture, right? I will not say that I know which is the perfect collection of books, right? Because people think the 66 books is the perfect, infallible Word of God. I believe that the 66 books is enough to know the nature of the Father, the nature of the Son, our relationship to Him, the story of humanity, and how to serve, right, and how to be obedient. But those 66 books, there's a reason we have, so many tens of thousands of denominations. Most people don't realize, like the book of Mark, right? I compare the hagiographies, right, where these guys are like, oh, well, this is epic legend because this was added sometime after, they claim, because the original one didn't have this context or these details, so they'll claim it's epic or legendary and added later. Well, the book of Mark is the oldest gospel according to the official narrative. The oldest gospel we have is Mark. And every single thing that was written after the women encountered Christ at the tomb was not in the original gospel. And according to the official narrative, which I don't trust their timing, but the official narrative says that gospel is older than all the other gospels by decades. So if we're going by that standard, right, with the hagiographies, It's the same concept, right? Where the book of Mark today, it's accepted that all the verses and chapters after the women encounter Christ at the tomb was added later. And the other gospels clearly pull from the gospel of Mark some of the stuff and then fill in between. There are contradictions. There are confusions because the 66 books, they don't even agree on what goes in there. There's inclusions, there's exclusions, whether it's whole chapters, like that story where Christ is writing in the sand with the lady, and they're like, you cast the first stone. That's not in the original manuscripts. That was added after, and but still knowing all those contradictions and confusions, right, and all the deception, I still trust it, right, because I've been given a supernatural faith to believe it. But I now I don't have that autistic, like, because my intelligence is like a non-believer in the truther community, constantly attacking my spirit with logic and facts and science or whatever it may be, right? Attacking my faith, and I don't really have that anymore for the first time in my faith. And I was saved in 2008, and the last year, my faith, I mean, maybe a little bit more than a year, but at least a year, my faith is, I don't even know how to describe it. That to me, because I love my brothers and sisters, I'm going, I have crippling social anxiety. I'm not used to people knowing who I am or what's going on in my life or caring for that most part. And it's a big change for me, psychologically, with my health stuff. I'm not used to other people caring or being concerned about what's going on with my health. And I don't want to really tear up about it, but I talked about it last night with Garidi, that it's a process for me to have to factor in other people into my thinking now, right? Where my daughter was really the only one that I considered when I would be thinking about my decisions and stuff. And I do want to thank you all for your prayers. That's another thing that I know sometimes it may not seem like the prayers are working, but I promise you, I've already noticed a difference in the last couple of days. It's been a long time since I've had brothers and sisters, true brothers and sisters, praying for me. And I've always been able to know, there'll be times where I'm just curled up in a ball, like a baby, just miserable. And usually in those points of time, I might have some stinking thinking, so it's not anything that I'm doing that warrants the peace and the mercy and the grace and the relief in that moment. So, I just know that I feel you guys' prayers. I'm very grateful for them. And, as much as it goes against everything in my nature to be a front face, I literally begged the Father. Out of all the things he could have asked me to do and called me to do for the church, this is literally the last thing. I begged him for a very long time that I would not have to do anything like this. I need to stop telling him what I don't want to do, because quite frequently he makes me do that, But yeah.
Well, he's definitely using you, and the information that you have, Adam, and that you're bringing to the public is helping. It's helping to restore people's faith.
That's what it did for me. I know for a fact, because I know there's some people that kind of there's genuine people that I know for a fact it's helped. Either I've spoken to them or, had message conversations and stuff. There's always the people that kind of look at you like a celebrity, and kind of go with the public, the groupthink type thing. But I know for a fact that there's at least a handful, maybe a dozen people that have found the same peace that I found. Right? We all have confusion. We all have waking up trauma. We're all trauma victims with PTSD from waking up. I don't care how long you've been awake. It's traumatizing. And the fact that, the deception goes so deep. So I am very thankful and grateful, because I felt useless to the church for a very long time. And although I was a prayer warrior, which is the most important thing we can do, as a man, as a grown man for a very long time, I felt useless. And, with the seriousness of like my health issues right now and, not knowing what the Father has planned, it's not a lack of faith when it comes to believing that the Father can heal me, because he's quite literally brought me back from dead before, and near dead more times than I probably know. I spent a year on hospice 20 years ago in April. I spent a year on hospice waiting to die. 100% they told me I was going to die. And clearly that wasn't the case. So I know it's not even a matter of belief. I know he can. And I will do whatever I can. I know that some of you are going to help. So I don't really want to grieve the Spirit, and, because I was already I had made peace with my fate, and I'll do what I can to stick around as long as I can, as much as I'm ready to get out of this, short season. I'll try to stick around for as long as I can. And
well, we need you, Adam. I'm not letting you go anywhere if I can help it, because we need you. This world, you are actually the reason. I don't know if you know this, but you're actually the reason that I started doing the little season videos. Did you know that? It was
now that you mention it, I think Grady, I don't know if he worded it like that, but the way that I remember, now that I don't remember him saying that until you now just said it.
Yeah.
It was after the video with Paul that you decided to come on.
The video you did with Paul changed my life. It really did. It was like Paul said, it was the smoking gun evidence. And it's not that, there's like these hidden documents that you have to be Indiana Jones to find. It was that no one even knew what hagiography was. Well, maybe some people did, but I had never heard that term. My pastor never told me about that. The church, no church ever, as far as I know, churches aren't teaching that, are they?
No, the only place you'll hear about saints is in the Catholic Church. And like I always say, the enemy is a master at hiding truth in repulsive organizations, right? The Latter-day Saints, he attaches to the Mormons, right? So anytime you say, we're in the short season, which technically means we are those Latter-day Saints, right? They immediately think Mormons and think you're, part of a cult or whatever. And the same thing with because that was what really shocked me when I initially dug into it. I was like, there's all these Catholic websites. And I was like, is this just nonsense? What is this? Is this just like lies or something? But these things go back for a very long time. And a lot of these are well-verified miracles. Like levitation and glowing is like officially one of the most like common things that would happen to saints, levitating. Maybe they're not like resurrecting 20 people, but they're levitating. And then someone will be like, pagans do that too. Right. And I very rarely get in the comments. I try to avoid it. But people will be like, the pagans do that. Well, we're in a supernatural war. 99% of reality we can't even perceive. Our eyes perceive less than 1%. And of that less than 1%, our eyes are only actually seeing like 10% of what's in our head right now, that picture. So 99% of reality, which is mostly the supernatural, we can't even perceive. You have two choices. You can serve the creator or you can serve the created, right? Both sides have access to supernatural power, right? And if, like, I always bring this up when people question what the saints were doing and the craziness of the miracles. We know what these secret societies and these dark schools and all these different occult stuff, we know what they're capable of. Witchcraft and embodying skinwalkers and all this different stuff, right? We know they're capable of doing that stuff. So if they're capable of doing that type of stuff with their supernatural powers, imagine how much more power we have being directly connected to Christ in the Father, right? And imagine what the saints had access to, right? Because Christ himself says, you're going to do greater things than these. And they did. And I don't know if we have that type of full access. I won't like go on record and say that we do for sure. But I know miracles happen today. The fact that I'm speaking you and breathing and just I'm able to walk on my own 2 feet is meant so many miracles. I've thought about writing my story because it's insane. I should not be here. I should either be dead or in prison 1,000 times over. And, but I am. And I haven't wrote my story because I don't even like to bring up my past and glorify my past. But with all the false accusations, right? I don't really care about discrediting my research or whatever. But I did really feel bad about these people getting people to just not look into hagiographies at all. And at this point, if you're still getting steered away from them by someone, understand you're most likely being deceived by somebody in the community. You could choose not to believe them, but you can't just throw out the subject like it doesn't exist. Otherwise, you're going to just throw out your whole faith because there's just as much corroborating, supporting evidence that these saints were ruling during this period of time than there is that Christ came, died, was resurrected,
And somebody asked me for a list of the books because I've mentioned in some of my videos that I've been purchasing all these books. Mm-hmm. I'm going to include a list of the books that I've purchased recently, not just on hagiography, but on the biblical events being in, America, the stories of the ancient, the American Indians and the Native Americans and just all these fascinating, but the Voyage of Saint Brendan.
Yep.
I have that book. I have the Alexander.
That's probably in my favorites because it's got everything.
Yep. I got Fox's Martyrs.
Yeah.
The Fox's Book of Martyrs. So I'll include a list of the books and the physical books. I'm not talking about the hagiography links. So if anyone wants to know like where to start, just there's so much. Yeah, to say that there's nothing to see here, it's funny to me. It's actually a joke. And Adam's right. If anyone has any doubts, contact us and we'll send you the links. We'll give you all the information and you can spend the rest of your life looking into this because there's that much information.
And I also have a link on here too. A lot of these are copyright free where you can download it yourself. You can print it out if you want. And then I have a whole bunch of other links for all these illuminated, the crazy, like the ones that I showed you earlier, like this Bamberg Apocalypse one. And, just these are the types of things that were made during the Dark Ages. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And female saints were killing it. For the females out there.
Yeah, we should do one on just the female saints.
Yeah, especially the virgin ones, like the, Thecla and Tabitha and, they gave up that temporal marriage, because I'm not a woman, but, I imagine a woman, right, who's married and has kids and experiences that joy and that love and that fellowship with that family, that's a sacrifice to give that up, right? And remain pure. And many of them did.
It really is like you need God to survive in this world. In my opinion, I don't know how people can survive without having God in their life. But
I know how I survived before I had my faith, and it was not fun. Right? I survived, but
it's a nightmare, right?
It's miserable. I was angry all the time. I just was constantly thinking about vengeance and holding grudges, and I was just miserable. I hated the world. I hated myself. I put myself through, when I was on the streets, I went through some darkness, and it took a lot for him to finally break me. It went through stages that, if you really want to hear my story, I apologize for the audio recording. They did not want me putting that out, I think, because I went into detail about my work in DC and my clients and stuff. But if you want to know how God basically broke me and convinced me he was real and instilled a very healthy fear of him, you can go to @ShortSeasoner on YouTube there. How I Met God is the video. And I go down just the stages. It took years of him breaking me. But I do appreciate you and you, Grady. Another thing I always say is, like, if you're thankful, just please don't put me on a pedestal. Direct your gratitude to the Father, because if it wasn't for him, I would not be here. I wouldn't have had the time to do this research. I wouldn't have, had the heart and the love for you, right? Because I love because he first loved me. And he who has been forgiven much is, required much. So please just direct your gratitude to him. But I am very thankful for the Father for bringing you guys. You guys are an answer to a prayer that I have had for many, many years. You came at a very interesting time too, with my health situation, like right when I had pretty much thrown in the towel. So I'm very grateful that you guys answered the being compelled by the Spirit, and you answered that call. So I do appreciate it more than I could probably put in words.
It's our pleasure.
Without bawling my eyes out,
Yeah, no, man. It's the same feeling. We all kind of came together, I think, at a time when we all needed each other. Because I say that to you guys all the time. I needed someone too. I had no one. I was going in alone until I somehow met all you guys at the same time. Like in the same week, I was introduced to like all my new friends. It's really
almost like something big is coming, and we need to get we need to take our role seriously, getting people prepared for what's coming.
Yeah. I just look at the change even in my channel, how it went from what it was to what it is now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's not me. That's not me. That's God's at the wheel. I'm convinced. He's just, it's amazing. Amen.
This is the end of the story. There's no more chances after this. So
my point is, yes, when we say we're at the end, we're not just saying because we think that there's, this biblical event coming. You can physically just see it with the scientific data that is showing how all these life providing ecosystems are dying every day. The plankton in the oceans, the stuff that's in the ponds, in the lakes. I mean, it's all being eradicated by the chemtrails.
Yep.
But anyway, we know that God has an answer to all of that, right? And that's what we're waiting for. And that ending is going to be, it's going to be worth waiting for, right?
Yeah. And you don't want to get caught come Judgment Day having buried your talents out of some fear of whatever. Fear of retaliation or public shame or humiliation or attacks or whatever it may be, even if it's your family, because, come Judgment Day, I do believe we will be rewarded. I thank my enemies all the time because I sinned against the Father a lot. I still do, every day I sin. I'm fallible, but, back in the day I sinned a lot against the Father. So balancing those scales with my works, like come Judgment Day, my enemies are probably going to make sure that I have a stack of rewards there waiting for me, which I probably wouldn't have had they not constantly attacked me. But I am going to do a video too, just if anybody's interested. If you're free, you're welcome to join. But I'm going to go into depth about all the connections within the alien, UFO, all that world, the Albert Pike plan, decades of, because the UFO rabbit trails, alien rabbit trails were the first I started going down when I woke up in 2017. That's what led me to, biblical cosmology and the short season and everything else. And I'm fully convinced that what they have planned with the fake prophecy and destroying everybody's faith is tied to all of that stuff. And I've done extensive research. I got all the Hollywood connections, the revelation of the method, the various options of how it could play out. And I'm going to do a long form video on that too.
Oh, cool. All right. We'll keep out, look on the lookout for that. All right, Adam, thank you. All the people watching, thank you all. You guys are absolutely amazing. We appreciate each and every one of you, and God bless you all, and good night.